What's up, guys? My name's Stu. Star Trek Online is showing us another new ship, and this one is right out of the IDW Star Trek comics. Here it is, the Theseus from the Star Trek comic books. I am really interested in this ship. For one, it looks gorgeous. Not just because, for one, it weirdly fits into the Star Trek Online aesthetic. I don't know if that was done on purpose or not, based on what was said in the 10-4 Weekly interview. I don't think it was intentional. It just was just a happy coincidence. But yeah, this ship blends in so well to the 2409 Star Trek Online aesthetic that Thomas Maroney said in the 10-4 Weekly episode that when building this ship for the hull material, he just used the revamped Odyssey hull material for it. And yeah, it absolutely fits for it. Yeah, here's a picture from Memory Beta of the ship as it looks like in the comics right now. And yeah, you can clearly see why this works so well in the Star Trek Online aesthetic. The very, very light, pretty much white hull material with the black contrast in some parts. Yeah, this thing was made for Star Trek Online, even if it was unintentional. Some lore about this ship, though. Apparently, this is not a new ship. The ship was not designed for the 2409 era. This is actually a very old ship. It's actually from the late TOS era. You first see it in the Year 5 comic books. It actually looks more like this. This is when you first see the Theseus in the Year 5 comics, and yeah, that takes place like, it's like Year 5 of Kirk's 5-year mission, so it's like very late TOS era. This is like when we're starting to see the transition from TOS era to the TMP era, which is why the ship has the TMP era nacelles. That's also why the registry number is so low. It's definitely way too low for the 2409 era, but this is definitely appropriate for something that would be in active service in the 2270s. Here's another look at the ship from Memory Alpha, and yeah, you can really see the TMP era aesthetic coming in from this ship. I should probably stop talking about the TMP era look, because that is not included on the Star Trek Online ship. The only model that is going to be included with this ship in Star Trek Online is this one. That said, legendary Theseus when? But yeah, the ship is actually really old. It spent years in the mothball fleet until Scotty actually came back from the Janolan when the Enterprise D found his transporter pattern, and Starfleet just kind of gave him the ship to tinker around with around like the 2370s. And after like 8 years of fussing around with it, he finally deemed it spaceworthy. So now the Theseus is sort of like an experimental testbed ship for whatever Scotty is screwing around with. The comic book brings together this kind of all-star cast for the Theseus' bridge crew, so it features like Captain Sisko in command after he returns from the Prophets. Scotty is still chief engineer, Data is the first officer, Dr. Crusher is the doctor, Tom Paris is the pilot. I know one of the officers is a descendant of Hoshi Sato. I haven't read the comic books yet. I've been waiting for the trade paperback because I'm boring like that. But yeah, I'm really excited to start reading that. Okay, enough about the lore. Let's get into the ship stats. So, this thing is a Miracle Worker destroyer with a secondary temporal ops seat. Right off the bat, this thing is going to be a really good energy weapon build. Got a hull modifier of 1.15, a shield modifier of 0.85, so pretty high in hull for an escort, which that's what a destroyer is, kind of a beefy escort. High in hull, low in shields, which that's exactly how I like it. It's got a 5.2 weapons layout plus an experimental weapon, so again, good for forward-facing builds. 3 device slots. The bridge officer seating is a Commander Tactical / Miracle Worker, Lieutenant Commander Engineering / Miracle Worker. That's not right. That's got to be a typo, because it definitely says Temporal Ops for the second seat up here, and also that's what we saw on 10-4 Weekly last night. Definitely has a, where is it? Temporal Ops seat in the first engineering seat, so I wouldn't put much stock in that second Miracle Worker seat. At least I hope so, because if this thing ends up being double Miracle Worker, I'm going to be really upset. Yeah, Lieutenant Commander Engineering and what should be Temporal Ops, Ensign Level Engineering, Lieutenant Commander Science, and Lieutenant Universal. One of the big weaknesses of Miracle Worker seating is that it has no abilities that trigger unconventional systems. However, that temporal seat, assuming that actually makes it on there, which it better, one of the advantages of the temporal seat is that will more than make up for those unconventional systems triggers. More than that, since it's the Lieutenant Commander seat, you'll have enough room for Recursive Shearing 1, and we all know Recursive Shearing has the potential to hit like a truck, even at only the level 1. The consoles are 5 Tactical, 4 Engineering, 2 Science, and 1 Universal, so you'll probably want to stick to a more tactical-focused console layout, like with the Spire consoles, but with 4 Engineering slots, plus the Universal. If you'd like to go with the new Advanced Engineering consoles instead, you definitely have that option. Because 4 engineering consoles plus the Universal plus the other Universal you get for upgrading it, that's definitely more than enough to make those isomagnetic consoles work. It's got a turn rate of 15, an impulse modifier of 0.21, and inertia rating of 60, so this is going to be a pretty fast ship. Power bonuses are going to be plus 20 to weapons and plus 10 to engines, so again, feeding into the powerful and fast motif that this thing is going for. It can equip dual cannons, which makes sense because it's an escort. It's got an experimental weapon slot, again, makes sense because it's an escort. It's got the cyclical quantum slipstream drive because it is a miracle worker ship, same with the innovation abilities. We'll get to the console in a bit, and it has the Destroyer Mastery package, which is the best one because it has buffs to accuracy, crit severity, crit chance, and kinetic and energy weapon damage. So yeah, assuming that this second Miracle Worker seat is actually supposed to be the temporal seat, like the blog and the 10 Forward Weekly preview suggested, yeah, this is going to be a very nice ship, especially if you like something like Scatter Volley. I mean, it can do beams just fine, but honestly, with an escort like this, I would probably go Scatter Volley. Moving on to the console, this thing is called Brancher Crystal Fragments, and you know the big crystalline fragments from the Crystalline Catastrophe TFO? That's kind of how this thing works. You activate it, it spawns 3 crystal fragments. They will go out and try to collide with enemy ships. When they collide, they will break into smaller fragments, and the smaller fragments will try to come back to you, and when they hit you, you will get a buff. Specifically a small buff to beam damage that will stack up to 12 times, as well as a reduction to the cooldown of this console. It's a neat idea, but frankly, after seeing the preview on 10 Forward Weekly, the crystal shards move so slow, and the fact that the small ones and the big ones are destructible as well, there's no guarantee that this console will actually do anything. It looks cool, but honestly, that's about it. I really am not super impressed with the actual functionality of it. Oh, and the passives. It gives buffs to beam damage and weapons power. I can get you the exact ones right here because here's the preview from the tooltip on 10 Forward Weekly. So plus 20% to beam damage and plus 5.3 to weapon power setting. Just for the sake of comparison, here's the Monavine's console that's going to be coming up with the new summer event ship. That gives bonus damage to disruptors. So yeah, which do you want? The bonus damage from the free console or the Cat 1 damage from the Lockbox ship console? Oh, I haven't brought that up yet, have I? Yeah, the Theseus, it's going to be in the Infinity Lockbox. I know, it sucks, but don't yell at me about it. I can't do anything to change that. The Starship trait on this thing is called the Ship of Theseus, and this one's a little weird. It ties it to the innovation ship mechanic on Miracle Worker ships, and so there's going to be some RNG involved. Like, a lot of RNG involved, actually. So how the innovation mechanic works is it's sort of like a Simon Says kind of thing. There will be a random power, and in order to activate said power, you'll have to activate a random sequence of bridge officer abilities, which will be determined by what department they're from. So the order could be, engineering, tactical, engineering, science, tactical, it could be any of the 3. Once you activate any of the 3 bridge officer abilities from those departments in that order, then the power will trigger. And again, the power will be any of the 6 random powers that the innovation mechanic has. So what this Starship trait does is it will give you a buff that depends on what the power is going to be and what bridge officers you need to activate it for. So say you've got Barclay Maneuver coming up in the innovation mechanic. So if you activate an engineering bridge officer ability, you will get a buff to your flight speed. If you have to activate a science ability, you'll be getting a buff to your tactical readiness. And if you have to activate a tactical ability, you will get a buff to your crit severity. These buffs stack up to 20 times. So yeah, you're going to be able to get a good amount of these. That said, it's still very random. You could get like a bunch of crit severity, or you could get a bunch of exotic damage, which really isn't going to do that much on a weapons focused build, or you get a bunch of shield power, which, I mean, we all know how I feel about shield power. The blog also doesn't give any indication for what the uptime for these buffs is. Do they just stay up permanently? Is there a set amount of time so you can keep cycling through new buffs? I don't know. There's no information on the blog, and there was no info on the tooltip either. Speaking of the tooltip, this will give you an idea of just how much of these values you'll be getting per buff, and yeah, it's not a lot. I mean, yeah, it stacks up to like 20 times, which I guess is good, but the fact that there's so much RNG involved, these are going to be really spread out. Who knows what you're going to be getting, so it's going to be, it's more likely going to be a lot of small little buffs than one big buff that would be much more beneficial. So yeah, interesting theme trait, but I don't think it's going to be super great in actual performance. Last thing to go over is the experimental weapon this ship comes with, and that is, well, they called it the Solar Voltaic Array here in the in 10.4 Weekly. It was called the Solar Voltaic Projector, so I'm not sure what to believe there. I don't know why I got rid of the tooltip. It's actually more helpful than the blog. This weapon deals fire damage, which can be dealt in a 250-degree arc, so this is going to be a mostly forward-facing experimental weapon, so you're not going to get much help in your rear arc. Not that that matters too much on a ship like this, because, I mean, with a 4-2 weapons layout, you're probably going to want to be doing a forward-facing build anyway. It has a 6-second recharge, which honestly isn't great, but it also has another effect that's very interesting, because it has a 10% chance to trigger a 200% firing cycle haste to all your energy weapons for 4 seconds. Yeah, 4 seconds isn't a long time, but that is a lot of energy weapon haste. Yeah, that much haste, even at 10 seconds, it's interesting. I don't know if I don't know if it would dethrone Soliton Wave Impeller, but yeah, this is definitely an interesting experimental weapon that I'm very eager to play around with, because that's a lot of haste. So yeah, overall, the Theseus, I like the ship. The ship as a whole, I really like, you know, based on its stats, assuming that Miracle Worker seat is supposed to be a temporal seat, like, you know, it was in the 10-4 weekly preview. Yeah, I really like the ship. The console and trait, not that big on the... They're very gimmicky. I'm not super impressed with them, so I wouldn't call either of them must-haves. The experimental weapon, however, that is certainly very interesting. Like I said, I don't think it's ready to dethrone Soliton Wave Impeller, but at the same time, if you're just tired of using that experimental weapon and want something just to change up the pace, this is definitely something worth looking at. Also, if you're interested in the summer event ship, this deals fire damage, so it's going to feed into the console and trait from the Hesperian Intel battlecruiser. Honestly, I'm probably going to try to get this ship. It's been a while since I've been actually like really interested in a lockbox ship, because, you know, lockboxes, we all hate them. You know, they're obnoxious, they're a pain in the butt to get a hold of, you know, the ships out of them, and they're expensive. They're single character unlocks, which is always my biggest gripe about lockbox ships. The single character unlock aspect is just absolutely stupid in my opinion. But yeah, this looks like a really fun ship to me. Its stats definitely suit my playstyle. Like I said, I'm not that interested in the console or the trait, but the experimental weapon is something I really would like to play around with, because that looks like it could have some interesting potential. And frankly, I really like the look of it, because, I mean, it's a cool looking ship. It fits really well into Star Trek Align's aesthetic, despite being actually from the comic books, which again is another reason why I like it. This is from the comic books. That's just such a cool tie-in that I really appreciate. This did come at a good time for me, though, I'll admit, because I got lucky with the lockboxes a few weeks ago. I was trying to get low buy, and I ended up getting a box, so lucky me. So I am going to be able to get this rather easily. So I'm sorry to those of you who will have to wait till next year's event campaign for this, if you're interested in it. So yeah, that is the Theseus Miracle Worker Destroyer. Like I said, that's going to be coming to the Infinity lockboxes. Did they give a date for that? No, they didn't. But we know that the summer event is going to be starting on the 25th, so it's a safe bet that this will be coming to PC on the 28th. Consoles, you'll probably get in a month or two. Yeah, like I said, I am really hyped for this ship. I'm into it. I like it. I'm probably going to pick it up, but, you know, that's because I am lucky enough to be able to pick it up right now. Normally, I don't have that kind of luck with the lockboxes. I'm honestly a little hesitant to say this, but let me know what you think of the Theseus down below in the comments. Just remember, guys, I don't have any part in the decision making here. I'm just a guy with a YouTube channel, so if you want to yell at someone about, why is this a lockbox ship? Go yell at someone else, because I'm not the person to yell at. But yeah, let me know what you think of the ship below, and while you're down there, be sure to hit like and subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. If you'd like to further support the channel, you can hit the join button to become a member, or hit the super thanks button, or find the link to the merch store in the video's description. If you're ever shopping on the Epic Game Store, be sure to use my content creator code STU1701 while you're checking out. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does help with the channel, so I do appreciate it. Either way, my name's Stu, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. I messed up the ending again. I keep doing that lately.